Jeez, I thought I was back in the army again.
He's too nice.
This is good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hartland Selectboard meeting on Tuesday, September the 3rd. Our first order of business are we have two sets of minutes from August 19th, both the regular minutes as well as an executive session. I would entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved.
Thank you, Clyde. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Trace. Any discussion?
Pause. Do you want to? No.
Cheyenne, not to get nitpicky, but under 6, town manager update, the last sentence, the auditors will, there will be information for the select board to review. I don't think the audit is done yet. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, motion passes. Next are the accounts payable or ordinances for today.
I think you got a copy of those.
You didn't get the orders?
No, just got an agenda.
He was on the list.
Yeah,
You're on the list.
I don't know how to explain that because they were in the packet.
Yeah, I got it.
I'll send you what I got.
Okay.
I must have it.
We'll go slow so you can take a look.
So even I can understand.
Do you have a copy?
Um,
Or do you want, do you need a copy or do you have one to look at?
Trace gave me one.
Okay. Yeah.
There's one in front of the blue folder.
Yeah, yeah.
Blue folder, so we don't have a green folder. next time?
The green folder, the blue folder is the actual invoices. We're good.
Okay. I need a motion to accept them.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. A second. Okay. Any discussion?
Is that the Jenigo Road, is that the final payment on that? No, 16,000, whatever,
To which one?
to pathway?
For the Queechee Road. I believe
What
that
did I
is the
say?
final,
Yeah.
Jennifer, yes.
Okay.
I believe that is the final invoice.
Okay.
Good. And I asked John in the his comments later in the meeting to give us an update on the status of the American Relief Plan Act ARPA monies and what was spent and what's left, because we would have used those monies to pay for the Queechee Road study. I have a similar question for the Ferguson Waterworks, the Mount Hunger culvert and the Jennyville.
Yep.
That's
So the Mount Hunker culvert is the one that we had replaced on the far end of the road unexpectedly prior to the paving.
okay.
And then the Jennyville one, that's a grants and aid project from 2 years ago. So that's the part of the work that they're doing now, the stone lining of the ditches and replacing the cross culverts as they're going up the road there.
Okay. So did the grants and aid actually return that full amount of it?
We have not submit, like, working, once the project is complete, we submit for reimbursement. Currently, we are out of pocket for those culverts.
I think I say this every few months, but ambulance services for the town of Hartford.
Yep.
22 grand. I often wonder what the threshold is for between what we pay for Windsor and what we pay for Hartford and Woodstock.
It's pretty similar. The price is the same. It's largely the same from last year. It's population based, so their price per capita didn't increase. It was a small increase in fees for the year based on population.
Okay.
So we don't charge per trip.
So that,
top of that?
I don't know the answer to. This is like their base fee to provide service to the town of Hartland. I want to say it was, I don't want to guess, but it's a flat rate per resident in the town. And so I don't know when they respond to an accident, for example, if they bill against that person's insurance company as well.
Probably.
One would,
Yeah.
it's safe to think, yes.
Flashbacks in my head say that that's an expensive ride. So somebody's paying in addition to them charging us a yearly rate, I would assume.
I think that is a safe way to think, but I don't know the answer for sure.
I know when they took Bruce to the hospital, the EMT said, you know, that taking Hitchcock instead of there, because he would have to pay for 2 rides. So I think the town, the Windsor bills to the insurance companies.
Yeah. Okay.
At least I send in 50 bucks.
Other questions? I am surprised that we're paying detail for Damon Hall.
Yes.
It's a mighty expensive internet connection. Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Does anyone have any adjustments to the agenda for this evening? Okay, then moving on to public comments.
I have one online. Did you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Helen, if you want to go first.
I just have a comment. I really wish that the Hartland Selectboard and the Planning Commission could work together, find a way to work together for the good of the town, because I read those newspaper articles and I just have to cringe. It seems like you guys can't work together. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Yes. Is there another comment online?
There are no other comments online right now.
Take 2.
Hi everyone, my name is Ella. I work.
You gotta get in the hot seat.
Yeah, come to
People
the
can hear you.
I work for the Vermont
Sign the
Department
backside of
of Health as the prevention consultant for our district. So it's my job to help support any substance misuse prevention work that's happening in our area. That looks like a lot of things, everything from, you know, Narcan distribution, educational programming, all the way through promoting belonging, and working with libraries and other local organizations that work to bring communities together. So I just started in the role about 2 months ago, but I wanted to come and introduce myself and let you all know that I'm a resource for you. So if you have questions about substance misuse in the area, or data questions, or funding questions, I am happy to answer any and all of those. I'll leave some of my cards as well, but please don't hesitate to reach out.
Oh, glad to have you. As some folks know, Rudy Fedizzi, who's the head of the department, is actually a new department resident. We're excited to have him in town. One of the projects that I've worked with your colleagues on is to possibly restart the idea of a neighbor-to-neighbor program, so that there was work done some years ago and it kind of fell apart. But we're looking at using a Dartmouth class as well as you guys as resources to try to move forward on that.
Great.
Well, thank you for coming, and I hope the 2 of you introduce just some of the projects that we're talking about. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Brian, right, from 2 Rivers, to talk about the Thriving Community Grant.
Well, that's an agenda item for later.
Yeah. We're not quite there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's a full start, right?
Okay.
We like people to get on. It's an exercise as well.
I brought a vest, thinking we might be running late, I'll be cold, so I jinxed myself thinking I would get out early. Okay, we have no old business, so moving on to Bob and the cemetery committee report. Bob, can you come forward?
So just before Bob starts, when you all sat down, there was information on the cemeteries on the table in front of you. It's not in your packet ahead of time.
I thought I was here mostly to respond to any questions. I've been on this committee and I has helped us a great deal in the past with his knowledge of the town. All I can say is the cemetery committee, as it once existed, no longer exists. And so I think all is in court now. And I've got a few handouts, which John very kindly made. Tom Williams, I visited all the cemeteries a year ago, and that's the last time I've been in there. But all the cemeteries share one commonality: trees. Trees that are dying and in need of pruning. And I guess that's what you have to consider, what we can do. They are, to my knowledge, and Clyde perhaps can help me on this, and have been the greatest threat to the historical nature of our cemeteries. Once they strike a stone, there's no repair. One cemetery, and Tom and I discussed this earlier in the meeting, that I think is facing the greatest peril is V.I.IT. Cemetery. There are 3 trees that happens to be on the abutting neighbor's property. Actually, correct myself, 2 trees, one of them fell the right way away from the cemetery. And there are 2 trees within the cemetery. There's also a large limb from a pine tree that we've been kind of watching and praying. The price I got from chippers on that one limb was $7,700. We decided that since there were 3 stones in harm's way, we 3 very old stones. That's really all I have to say. We haven't really done, and Tom, you can speak to this perhaps better than I. We haven't done much work in the way of restoration since we lost Dan Moransky, who was our expert of sorts. We really haven't. And those, one cemetery we worked on last was Center of Town Cemetery. Lee, there is another peril. I've got a picture of it. Have you all seen the crypt in Center of Town Cemetery?
Yes.
That might pose a hazard. I'm not qualified to speak to it, but it certainly doesn't look like it's in the best of shape.
When you say restoration, are you talking about the stones themselves, or just more about the site, or site end stones, or?
We didn't get into it because of our lack of expertise.
Okay.
What Dan and I did at Center of Town, and we've done it a little bit, is tried to preserve the inscriptions on the stone by setting them up if they were lying in the dirt.
Yeah.
And at Center of Town, we actually, thanks to the highway department who gave us some stone, we didn't deal with cement base below the frost line, but we did deal with hard pack. And it, it's a slow process.
Okay.
There has been a considerable amount of discussion as far as what will be the best methodology for repairing the stones, whether there's epoxies or pinning or a combination of the 2. There are people in the area that have considerable expertise in this, and we were thinking of availing ourselves to them to see if they could assist.
Yes. Yeah, and the stones are limestone as well as potentially granite, a different stone, or are they mostly hard granite?
I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
Dan can speak to that better than I, because after he left Hartland, the town crew, he worked at Hanover, and he was fortunate enough to essentially gain some tutelage from the professional restorers who Hanover hired. They used to come and stay for 2 weeks in a van right in the summertime and do the work. And Dan was looking over the shore to see how was the workforce. of it was done. And he told me, and it's, I know nothing of this, but he told me they were using a form of super glue. Again, that's above my pay grade. These were the experts that handled it. So you could consult with him or hire an expert yourself. We simply were trying to keep the stones vertical. I think in Center of Town Cemetery alone, there were 47 stones that needed to be, so to speak, resurrected.
And one of the pressing issues that has been presented to us has been, are there any open spaces in cemeteries that could potentially be used? And I think we've been exploring different technologies to try to answer that question. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I spoke a couple of years ago with Darryl Boston. Darryl is kind of still in town, but leaving town. He is, I dare say, from my limited perspective, the local expert.
Okay,
For how many years more, I don't know.
yeah,
None of us are growing any younger. And his ground penetrating radar, I'm not sure how it would hold up in court, but it seems to be the best methodology that I've seen evidence of. Maybe some of you, he gave at a Hartland Historical Society, he gave a tour of a dramatization of how it worked, and it seemed to work.
okay.
And that's the issue I left with John. The last survey, and Clyde, help me out, you know more about this than I do, I know you do. The last survey of our cemeteries were largely done by the Machmans.
Right.
The previous one, and that was done in 95,
95, okay.
1995.
Okay.
And the previous one was done in 1936 by Howland Atwood. But the one that is perhaps most germane is the one that was done by Mr. Rugg. Help me out, Clyde.
But no, by Ruggles
Ruggles.
in 1908.
Yeah, my copy left it off.
Huh?
In 1908, yes.
Yeah.
That is essentially within 100 years of when many of these stones were set there. And that might be the authoritative one to give someone using ground penetrating radar an inkling of where to look. Because I'm sure, based on my observation, which again, I have no expertise in this whatsoever, that would be the one that would show us where the open spaces are and you're looking at. And I fully concur with the idea of kind of self-funding. Remember, Tom, when we wrote the piece, a few years back for the town report, we've got to somehow self-fund a little bit because the cost of just tree removal is horrendous. And any restoration and repair work of the walls, et cetera, is going to just add to that. So if we were to open some cemeteries to cremains, I dealt with this a few years back. I think I had to pay about $400 or $500 to a cemetery for, like a very small hole in the ground where the cremains were put. But that might help self-fund. The price is not going down, and the need for services is increasing.
And you mentioned to me briefly, just before the meeting, that some of the trees that are dying around happen to be ash trees. And of course, we don't know if it is emerald ash borer or one of the other ash problems, but that's a big problem.
Yeah, and we can talk about that. It makes a little difference what is,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
So I can't add much expertise, but you have two people who has a tremendous background in town lore town is working on several cemeteries, and there is a demand. I hope the two folks that serve the town well will be considered, both Dana, Paul and Dana, and Tom,
Bill Brockman,
who was on the planning commission for years.
that's Bill Brockman. Who's it? Bill Brockman.
Bill Brockman. And I believe Nancy is still in touch with you, Tom?
Get the annual phone call.
I can't answer many questions of people who can.
So to try to move this along a little bit, in our roadside conversation, I think last week, the week before, and we thought maybe there would be room at the VIII cemetery, there may be more open space there. But the issue is going to be is access, even if we decide not to put more remains in that cemetery, we can't get to the trees from the road. So we are going to need to ask Mr. Faroa if he would allow us to have easement from his property to try to get to those trees. So I was wondering if we could ask the town manager to write a letter to him saying there are these trees and they're a danger to the gravestones, and would he consider allowing us or consider expanding that existing cemetery? Just as a starting point to see whether we get a response from him or not. But there's an old logging road that would provide access, but it's gonna need some work, it's overgrown, it's all full of shrubs and stuff, but that would be the only access to that cemetery. And then secondly, again, because I work with him, the gentleman who came here from Cavendish said he would be more than willing, especially in early October. And he said in Cavendish, they do a lot with just taking a steel rod, and they can get down and you can feel it because they're not very deep. He said the average is around 3 feet, a little over 3 feet. So if we can't, but even if we could just start with the one on the county road for Old Dana and just see where they're, and even just ask the family to help us. But I know they're anxious to inter those remains. I don't think it has to be a lot of expense. We just need the initiative to do it.
Yeah.
And the cemetery, commission has a budget to do some of this work, so.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have a bond system.
Right,
That's
right.
the issue.
But to hire a Bruce or a
Right,
Daryl or whomever
right.
to do that work. Some of that additional mapping.
Yeah, I feel we've talked about using one of the cemeteries and conducting a prototype, to see what it would cost to finish and map and so on. And then, of course, what kind of report do we do? Is it on paper or is it on a digital database of this? Yeah, it would be good for us to address the historical nature of these cemeteries, as well as the fact that people are looking to use them.
Every day. I would encourage you to check the Vermont statutes annotated with regard to cemeteries. Because towns have increased power in recent years as to particularly private cemeteries. If they are not being maintained, even though the owner may not be aware of their ownership. Both Clyde as a town clerk, longstanding, and Hiram both thought there were several cemeteries that may not have been deeded to the town. We've maintained them for many, many years, but they may still be privately owned.
Are those on the map that you're talking?
Yes. One in
These are all
question,
the cemeteries in town.
there's some deed.
Yeah.
And any cases, and I have for documentation, the funds were transferred by daughters of, and this is in 1950, they transferred the fund, but we haven't been able to find the title transfer for that land. So until we do, we aren't sure who owns what. But in either case, the town also, the laws also state the town has a responsibility for maintenance. And I can give you John that piece of paper. I just checked it online, and you probably have the book upstairs, which of course.
Okay.
Override.
Okay, any other questions for them? Thank you for coming.
Just really quickly, one question. What is the direction that we're taking after this is over?
Thanks.
I think our intention had been to get a hold of Errol to see if he would be interested in using the radar sonar piece.
Okay.
I think we decided on Weed Cemetery.
I think that Tom just mentioned the county road cemetery.
County road.
That's where there's the most interest.
The one on the Gallup and County, those are the two parties that have been in contact directly with me. And I would think the Tamas own that property, right around.
Yeah.
So they could just expand the wall if they wanted to.
Just a sidelight was when Tom and Timmy Warren were assuming room temperature in Woodstock, they deeded a portion of their farm to expand the cemetery so that they could be in that cemetery. And that option is available to other people.
I never heard of that. So.
So Trace, that's the emerging plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Safe to see it.
But I guess the other piece is to see if we can get access to the back of Weed.
Yes.
Correct. And Trace, I think you had mentioned earlier, is there an ability for a climber to take those trees down rather than bring in big equipment?
There is availability of someone who climbs. They can, well, there's several actually, and they're a lot less expensive than having a crane come in and try to make it into a road system. So
If the limbs are
it's about
stable
pricing.
enough.
It's about pricing.
Yeah, and the arborists that I use, they climb.
Yeah,
So and it's rather efficient. And my house is still standing.
But, just my own ignorance, will they climb dead trees where the limbs may not be stable?
Correct.
They would have to look at it and assess it themselves, but I guess the point is that trying to get a crane into the backside of the cemetery and the road hasn't been cleared for 50 years. It would be a really expensive item, but somebody that could just climb up the tree, cut the limbs off in small pieces, drop them, and then drag them out, would probably save a lot of money. So it's about how you look at the bid or the bid cost to get those things done.
We still, even if we want to do this, probably ask Mr. Pruitt if it's okay for us to do this.
Correct. So it's kind of two actions from here is to work on the tree issue and also talk with either Bruce McEnany or Daryl Hawkins about the ground sonar. So we can take that and move forward with that.
Great.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We have Brian from Two Rivers to talk to us about the Thriving Communities Grant that Hartland was one of the recipients of. So welcome, Brian.
The first time here at the select board meeting, so myself and Frank Wallach, I work at Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission. I've been there coming up on a year now, so here talking with you guys. So the first thing to say is, well, congratulations. You are a part of a competitive grant, federal government, that was only issued to 6 communities across the nation. So our region, there's 6 towns that are part of this grant. Hartland is one of them, along with Hartford, Royalton, Bethel, Granville, and Hancock. And we partnered with Upper Valley, Lake Sunapee, that RPC across the river, and there's an additional 9 towns in New Hampshire that they are working with. So altogether, there's 15 towns across 2 states. This is a pretty unique opportunity from the Department of Transportation. This is only the 2nd year that this program has existed, and this is a pilot year for a new part of the program called Regional Capacity, Regional Pilots. So this is really an opportunity to help our town, our region, with a lot of other transportation related work and transportation planning and other tasks that tie into transportation planning. This grant, right now, we're in the 1st year of the period of performance. It will go on for 3 years in total. And it will cover about half of my work for the next 3 years. Will be devoted towards this grant program. And there will be several other members of our staff who will also be working with our towns on this. So that includes Kevin Geiger, Sarah Ray, Peter Gregory will also probably assist a little bit, and Rita Sato as well. So we will be able to provide some tailored assistance to towns that are part of our Thriving Communities grant. And there will be a sub-award that is a part of this grant program. We don't know how that will work, and all sub-awards have to be worked out with the Department of Transportation. They have to get their sign off. But we will be able to use the sub-awards for a few potential different things. Staffing or consultants or something we can do. We can also spend some of it on community engagement or stipends for community engagement related activities, or engineering or design plans and studies can also be paid for through a sub-award. So there is some sub-awards available, and when we get farther along in the grant program, we'll talk about what we can use those for. First thing, just to say that there's work we're doing right now with DOT just to get the overall work plan for this contract set up. So we have established with them, this is not completely finalized yet with DOT, hopefully we'll finalize tomorrow. But just the focus of the grant is really on 3 goals that are communities with the capacity to scope, design, and implement transportation-related resilience projects. That are communities will advance flood mitigation and resilient transportation projects that integrate with other goals related to planning, such as housing, safety, economic development, and public health. And that our towns will work together to mutually strengthen their support and capacity to deliver transportation projects. So the 3 sort of overarching goals of this grant program. Breaking those goals down into tasks then, there's a variety of tasks we can take on with our towns. We can help towns identify and pursue grant funding. We can help towns administer grants once we won and awarded. We can help plan and scope transportation projects. We can also provide some project management for transportation projects, some on-call technical assistance. And then the big focus of this grant is also on organizational capacity building. So we can assist towns with trainings, working to build relationships, sharing knowledge, doing peer learning, networking opportunities with regional or state or federal stakeholders as well. So there's already a broad sort of grasp of what we can do. We can also help towns to develop and enact inclusive planning processes. DOT is putting an emphasis on that kind of work. We can also help reform and advise on reforms to land use and zoning practices. I know right now there's ongoing rewrite of the town plan and update of it, so that is something that I might be able to, from a transportation angle, might be able to come in and assist the planning commission with. Transportation capital budgeting is another task that we can work with. And then the other piece is really integrating transportation planning with other forms of planning for things like housing or community development, or climate resiliency, or planning for natural hazards, or public health and safety. So there's a pretty broad amount of tasks that we can take on.
Is that next to last category you mentioned, transportation,
Capital budgeting.
capital, yeah.
Yep.
How would that relate to Hartland?
So I could assist, for instance, I could assist with developing a capital budget for, there's a fly buzzing around me. Capital budget for things like highway equipment purchases, or individual or planning out transportation projects over 5 or 10 years, and helping the town pass that, get it enacted, and then use that as a guide for transportation projects for the next horizon, 5 to 10 year horizon.
Okay, that's exciting.
So can you just help me understand the structure here? So is the grant money going to TRORC to help the towns with all those items? So it's not really grant money that we're leveraging to actually do a project.
No, but there is also the sub awards available too. So there is money set aside, which cannot be used for capital projects directly, but can be used to assist with capital projects like plan studies, consultants.
But not the actual shovel work.
No, the sub award cannot directly go into shovel work. That's a DOT.
So you would fund like a hydraulic study for culvert, things like that?
It could, or other sorts of projects, plans maybe, if the town wanted to do an active transportation plan, it could go with that.
And what do we, as far as the amount of the grant, how much money we're talking about that probably may potentially be able to access?
So the grant itself, the whole grant between us and Upper Valley, Lakes and PRPC is like $1,200,000, something like that. We, just as Two Rivers, are getting, I think it's $325,000 of that. And that's mostly towards their staff work, but then the sub awards, separate part of that, that's $250,000, and we're not sure exactly how that's going to be split up between our towns yet. So between Hartland and the other 14 towns, we will talk with Upper Valley DOT about how to, assign the sub awards for that. But that's splitting up, just dividing that number by 15, that's about $16,000 per town. And of course, that'll vary what towns get what, but that's some of the money. So then the next thing that I'm working on right now, we're hoping to finalize the overall work plan with DOT this week. Then the next step is to create an individual community work plan. So there's a few inputs that I'll need from the town, from various stakeholders within the town, to write out this community work plan. The first thing really to discuss is just based on the outline of the tasks that can be done with this. What, as a select board, do you think you would have interest in as tasks to take on? Things like the capital budget, sounds like there's interest, but other things as well.
Planning and scoping.
Planning and
We'll
scoping.
always, I would think, I'm not trying to speak for you all, but I think we'll always need help with that. Help with finding the right grants to do our projects.
Yeah, I agree, Jim. We have, we would like to develop the library Foster Meadow area to make it safer for pedestrians who might be walking to the library. The parking at the library is not handicap accessible. In the long range, could we develop parking spaces for town with charging stations and we have a verbal granting of the right to use the property behind the general store to allow kind of a walking path from the potential parking area up to town. We also have the potential for housing on Route 12 opposite the fire station and a town garage. Should that, it looks like the Conservancy land is going through, but should we be able to get a housing project there, then help facilitating a bike ped grant to extend the town sidewalk to that area. And I don't know about walking trails. We've been, Conservation Commission has been doing a lot of, starting to do work in that area around Summer Falls and we've been talking about Katy Brook, the Katy Brook area this year. I think the idea of getting our citizens out and walking and using public spaces just will promote better health and appreciation of the resources in town.
So I think we should look into new culvert inventory.
Yes.
And also, so Brian, I know I'm a planner from Edmond-Scottney Regional Commission. And yeah, and in the old days, we used to have what we call a road system management system, which you looked at you conditioned both the roads and then you looked at all the culverts. It seems to me with the climate change and the rainfall we're getting and so on, and the damages done to our roads, it would be really helpful to be able to do a capital budget is to know what those conditions are. And that was one of the reasons why I asked you how much we were getting, because it's fairly expensive.
Right.
If you think about it, doing a town-wide, maybe we would only want to do part of a town or something like that. But, and then it also looks at sustainability and some of the other things that DOT is looking at. So.
And Tom, I would add to that, we had Two Rivers did a road survey for us some years back. It could be eight years or so ago now, but identified roads with certain grades that then needed to have ditching work done to meet the state requirements, which are coming up real quickly, mostly over the hydraulically connected brooks.
The segments that are hydraulic.
Yeah, so what, funds to look at the culverts, look at the ditching, to sort of help us get a better state. John, we have a proposed study coming this fall.
This fall, the half of the RSMS that Tom mentioned is only paving. We're not looking at culverts under that.
All right.
I would also, to kind of circle back around to the first point that Jim made, getting projects to be shovel ready. So if we can do the engineering work under this project, specifically for projects that could potentially be funded under other grant programs. So projects that are within the MAP floodplain or river corridor that there is like dedicated funding for, and not on an annual basis, but it turns out we get disasters pretty frequently.
Yeah.
So, prioritizing those projects where we can get essentially, 80% of the project covered if we have the engineering at hand.
Right.
So can we use possibly these grant monies to take us to the new phase of the Quechee Road study to begin to look at actual per mile
Well,
the areas?
if there were grant money to help do that, I think. Is what you're saying.
Correct. I think one of the things, we could see if we can get Two Rivers to partner with, the Quechee Road, we just had a study assessment completed, and the price tag for repair work is high. So trying to look at, and there's not a lot of frequently used grant programs to pay for paving. So, trying to track down grants that we could use for that project would be really helpful.
So what kind of format would you like to see? We could maybe have John take our ideas and distill them a little bit. Are you looking for us to try? Because we probably tonight just spent about 300,000.
Give or take.
What would make your life easier as far as trying to put together?
Well, and it would really make us life easier if we get it all for Hartland.
Well, and Peter lives in town,
So I kind of have a technical question, right? So it's, resilient transportation. Queechee Road is a big road, connects us to Queechee, right? And kind of further towards White River. Is the fact that that road is deteriorating, is it qualified as a resilient transportation project?
I mean, so I would always define resiliency as like the ability to withstand a blow of sorts. I mean, a natural hazard happens and your road is resilient because it can withstand the impact of it. But yeah, I mean, I think that would, because it is taking a beating, I guess, from flooding, I'm assuming.
Well, I think it's just deteriorating overall, whether it's weather or just age or poor structure or whatever it is.
I would think that the Queechee Road specifically would not fall into that resilient transportation category. The work we just did on,
Critical power.
right, the work we just did on Jennyville, right, the box culvert,
Correct,
those type of
That's
projects.
flood resilience.
That's resilient transportation.
Although, when water moves through the dirt,
On the ground.
it fills your swales in along the side of the road and then causes the water to stay underneath the road, which freeze thaw causes a lot of the problems that we're having on that road. So that you could tie it if you wanted to really look at it in that direction.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's certainly getting eroded at some point.
It certainly is. And it's, I'm blaming the floods.
I'd say like a project course with DEC, they do need to call it, which need to keep it more resilient.
You're talking Noah floods or
Any flood and every flood.
But there was another question, this end of the table. What would be kind of like easiest to work with the town would probably be establishing a steering committee of sorts with representation from various groups. Probably, I would see one select board, two select board members being on it, maybe planning commission members, conservation commission members.
What's the goal for the steering committee?
That would be, right now, would be working with me on a community work plan, developing that. Then I foresee in the future, probably having events in the community, asking for community input for the work plan, but also just for projects going forward, and then thinking about projects in the town that people would like to have, and then showing that there's sort of broad base of support behind a project idea. So I assume the steering committee would be involved in probably all of that. Also, the idea of creating a steering committee is the work of sort of representing the town with this grant doesn't just fall only on the select board. It makes your lives harder.
And this would be a steering committee of Hartland community, and then how would Two Rivers navigate what Hartland wants versus the other 4, 5, 6 towns in the area?
Well, I mean, so it would be, there'd be specific tasks that I would work with, I mean, through the steering committee, and when it's like scoping projects, for instance, maybe something that the steering committee could take on. But as far as like balancing the work with Hartland versus the other towns, it's really, up to the town to define what work we want to take on. So what tasks we want to take on under the grant. So yeah, I don't know, see how there'd be a real issue.
Well, we were joking before, but literally, we could send you back to the office with spending all the money on the grant.
It strikes me as, people in this room or in the highway department, there's a small set of people I think understand what the priorities are.
Yeah.
And, pushing that out to a committee and expecting people that aren't familiar with kind of what the needs of the town are to come back with the right set of priorities is.
I just don't want to raise
extra work.
expectations.
Right, because we're ultimately talking about potentially $16,000. There's a time commitment to steering committees and things like that, so we want to make sure that we're being respectful of everybody's time.
I'm just not, so I guess I'm just not sure we need a committee. We just need decisions. Yeah.
No, that's a very fair point. If you don't think there's any value in setting up the steering committee, then I agree.
What are you finding for the other towns you're visiting?
So far, I've talked to Royalton, and they wanted a steering committee because they're select board is overworked and overwhelmed, and they wanted somebody else to really take on the responsibility of working with me on this.
Do you have a town manager?
They don't have a town manager, they have a town like admin assistant. Who's part-time. Right now, tonight, Sarah is in Hancock talking to Hancock Select Board, and Kevin is in Hartford talking to Hartford Select Board.
Okay, Hancock's on that member board, I think. Yeah.
But if it does make sense to work with John regularly on this, happy to work with John on this.
Yeah, I agree with both observation. One, the amount of money in the pool isn't that great. But nonetheless, we could use some help with planning right now. And as Jim said, not really sure it would benefit us to get a large group together to spend 16K when we can just outline things. So would you stay in touch with John as you get back to the office and talk about what the other towns are sort of saying? We can come back together either with you or we could get a subset of folks to meet with you and do some.
We could also have a hybrid process where we brainstorm, we come up with ideas, and then we invite the community to comment, to hear our ideas at a meeting. I think when you deal with these federal grants, there's a fairly strong citizen participation aspect of it. And so I'm trying to help Two Rivers here because they need to show that there's been the appropriate amount of citizens. I'm not trying to be cynical about this. It's just the nature of these grants. And, you know, Washington DC doesn't quite understand rural Vermont and sort of how we do things. And so.
Sure. Well, and if the idea is to also become a vehicle to get grant money, then that's really the gist of what I was talking about here, and then possibly managing that, whatever that grant money would be.
Right.
Okay.
That could definitely be a big component of the work I do for.
Yes, we'll establish a citizens committee of sorts.
Okay.
Okay. Chris?
I think that the grant writing is the big piece. If you have a good grant writer, it's really important.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's what we're here tonight is being offered.
That's where we need to go. It will help, John. Tremendous amount, because you have knowledge of it also. So now you just get more knowledge.
Yes.
Any thoughts, John? Okay. Tom, any additional thoughts? Okay. John?
No,
Okay.
thank you, Brian.
Right, thank you very much.
I was gonna say, before I go though, any community partners we've identified working with right now? Conservation Commission, Planning Commission.
Let's
Depends on the project.
let's check on that and get back to you.
Where you and I can talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, I'll follow through that.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Our next agenda items are the photo blisters. This is Barbara with us tonight to talk about recognitions and grand list.
Good evening. So, yes, the Board of Listers is asking the Select Board to approve the errors and omissions that we submitted. Once the grand list has been lodged by state statute, we have to seek permission from the Select Board to make any changes based on any errors or omissions that come to our attention. There are 4. And 2 of them involve veterans exemptions, late filing of veterans exemptions. Parcel ID 013086000 at 17 Hartland Hill Road. a qualifying veteran. Be a $4,000 exemption for the property. The other one is parcel ID 008075000, located at 17 Windy Meadow Lane. And again, that is also a qualifying veterans exemption. These property owners didn't realize until just a few weeks ago that they actually qualify for this veterans exemption. And we, as a board of listers, determined this year that we would allow late filings of veterans exemptions until mid-October, especially in light of, the tax burden this year, to try to allow for anybody who might qualify to take advantage of that. Then the other two involve the same owners, I should say. Two parcels, parcel 013123000 at 89 Advent Hill was purchased by Robert and Robin Watkins last July. And it is in basically just about abuts the property they already owned at 013074000 98 Advent Hill Road, which is their primary residential property. At the time, it's essentially along the road at sort of a diagonal that sort of splits the two parcels. And in our first pass at it, we kind of said, I don't know that those are contiguous. The property owners reached out to us just a few weeks ago and said, is there any way we can appeal this at the state level, any way this can be considered? We reached out to the state, our district advisor, and said, what exactly is the clear definition of contiguous parcel? And essentially, it's determined by the listers within the town. And if you pick up the road on Advent Hill Road, the northernmost point of 89 Advent Hill could be touching the southernmost point of 98 Advent Hill, sort of by diagonal across along the road. So therefore, we determine that it is contiguous and are submitting this as a error to be corrected. It means we make the 89 Advent Hill Road parcel inactive, move the value of the property and make it contiguous, combined and merged with 98 Advent Hill.
There's the question is, I'm not familiar with this process. Because, so the first two I got, right?
Yep.
VA, veteran issue.
Yep.
This one, is this more of a board of appeals or board of abatement issue? Or is it really an error in admission?
It really could be an errors and omissions, not really, because it's talking about should they have been made contiguous, probably when they purchased it, when we did the brand list.
But is it clear? Because the wording used was that it wasn't really clear if they were connected or not.
It's in such close proximity, and looking at the map and going back and visiting the site again, which is what we did in the end of August. It was like, yeah, based on the definition, we really should consider them contiguous. When we visited the property way back, I think it was late winter, it was a little harder to tell exactly where boundary lines ended in the southernmost point. This time of year, obviously, it's a lot easier to kind of traipse around and see. So had we seen it like we saw it now, we would have made the decision to make it contiguous prior to lodging the ground list.
Okay.
This is similar to what Jim is asking. Just from the math that's here, you're reducing by 121 something.
Yep.
And then you're increasing by 50.
So that's because when you have, there is a 2-acre building lot site on the that was assessed on the 89 Advent Hill Road. That still remains as a 2-acre building lot site, but per reappraisal guidelines that we follow and apply to all properties, we have the value of any additional building lot sites if you have more than one on a property. So when it's merged, it becomes where it would have had a grade of 1, we put it at a grade of 0.50. And that's what how we consistently apply additional building lot sites to all properties. And the additional acreage that's being added to it, the other 11.88 acres is becoming acres other. So because now you have a 15-acre, almost 16-acre lot versus an 11-acre, 12-acre lot, your price per acre comes down a little bit. So that's where the value of your land comes down a little bit, and that's why that difference.
Okay. So this is just parcel value, it's not a tax value.
It'll be an adjusted tax bill, but yes,
Right,
assessed
but-
value. This is not in taxes, no, this is just basic
Property value.
assessed value, yes.
If I could say something that's not obvious from this, is the net difference is a negative $71,000 to the town. So that's
On that property.
On that part.
on that 71,1. So it's that much less assessed based on the formulas and the stipulations she was using to explain how we got there. So that's not shown here. I did some arithmetic. It's all 70. What really happens here is you take the on the left-hand column, you have 121 and 197. If you add those two together, you get $318,000. That's what the property used to be worth to the town. But once you do this merging that we had, you would take, I know it's confusing, so you take the 318,600, which is the two parcels, 318,000, and then you subtract from it the 247,500, because that's the new value of what's now a single parcel. Okay, and then what that nets out to is $71,100 less assessment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So is there also a derelict mobile home now on a single parcel?
So on that particular 89 Advent Hill, there is a mobile home that was deemed a total loss by the insurance company prior to them purchasing it, due to extensive water damage and mold and mildew in it, that we adjusted the value in 2023 grand list when it was under different ownership prior to Robert and Robin Watkins purchasing it.
So is there any use now of that mobile home?
It's not being used, it's still vacant, it's still uninhabitable. It is listed on the inventory, but it's at a 99% depreciation. So it has a value of about $700 right now.
I just wonder if we have a health issue.
Right. Yeah, no, there's nobody living in it or utilizing it in that capacity, no.
Just, so these two parcels are being merged, so in future iterations of the tax map, it will show as one parcel.
Yes.
Okay.
As a contiguous parcel. Still separately deeded, it's only for property tax purposes only.
Good. Then we look for a motion to,
I make a motion that we accept the corrected errors, the errors and omissions from the corrected errors and the errors and omissions as stated by the.
I think you're accepting the error.
Accepting the error certificate as stated in our packet dated August 26, 2024.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor, say aye.
The select board needs to sign it, then we need to sign it, and then it has to be submitted.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, so we have something to sign here. Thank you, Stacy. Think about it.
So
Go ahead.
on our table,
We already voted, we're done.
no, so we'll have to reappraise it? That's something different?
That's different, different correspondence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that last year's here?
You're lucky on that one.
No, that's in 2 weeks. Rephrasing, right?
No, it's something different, something unrelated to this conversation.
Gotcha. Who seconded it?
A moment to get this signed, move along to new business, the Cat Shape Farm at 350.
Have you noticed the comment period? Let's go August 28th.
Consider a request for extension. So, yes.
Great. Let's see what everything is. Oh, you said it though.
Yeah.
Next item of new business is an Act 350 permit amendment filed by Fat Sheep Farm.
So this could be very quick. So there was a permit amendment request by Fat Sheep Farm to remove a permit requirement that the cabins built up there remain as short-term rentals. There's no additional information available. I requested an extension to the district commission so that you all could at least have a conversation about this, whether you wanted to request a hearing to get more information, or we can simply do nothing and let this go.
So in the last week or so, if not 2 weeks, a number of the abutting neighbors have removed their request to
That's correct.
be part of that process.
That's correct.
So if it's no longer going to be short-term, what is the ramification of removing that designation?
So the reason I brought it up this evening, as I see it, there could be, if they become long-term rentals, and again, there's no indication that they will be, it's just a request to remove that requirement. If there could be, traffic impacts if you're taking short-term rentals and creating year-round then long-term rentals. I'm not sure if the fire department would want to look at emergency services, things that might not have been looked at when they were short-term rentals. Again,
Just an unknown. It's an unknown.
that's just it, it's an unknown. We don't know because we didn't, when it was viewed initially, they were viewed as short-term rentals. So the next step, we could request a hearing from the district commission, ask these questions, get additional information. Or if there's not significant concern, we can leave it in the district commission's hands to make a determination.
So I get few phone calls from residents about concerns, and I have gotten phone calls on this about traffic. Can we talk to the district coordinator and find out what the ramifications of this might be?
So I think it'd be, if we request a hearing, I think we go forward and it's the applicant in the town, because we would be a party in that.
A party to it, and then have the discussion at that point.
Correct. And at that time, the conversation could simply be, yes, we anticipate, X number of vehicle trips per day, period.
So I tried to get online, difficulty, but Did anyone look at the application? Did it say anything in the application as far as what they might do?
No.
They did not.
No.
Yeah, I think we should ask her. Yeah,
Okay, other thoughts?
I mean, if you ask for a hearing, it's fine. You could have state specifically what your concerns are and how they relate to the Act 250 criteria. The 10 criteria that are really like 30 criteria.
Yeah, the proposed draft is pretty clear about no further subdivision, alteration, development, or tract of land. So we continue to be those 5 units. Just the difference would be the piece that we don't know.
The amendment is only to remove the requirement that they remain short-term rentals. That's it.
Yeah, there's no other commitment or non-commitment in there.
Yeah,
And there is, from the original application, there was no traffic study as far as number of trips to be generated, et cetera, in that.
That I don't know the answer to.
I don't think the 10 was, I don't know.
John did.
Maybe theoretically, there's traffic impact today when in the coming month when all the tourists are here. looking for
Yeah,
lodging.
that's temporary. This is a permanent situation.
If you look at their website, you're hard pressed to book a night up there anytime during the year.
Would just be interested to know, and why do you need to change it?
Okay, well, rather than try to solve it, it sounds like are we basically saying we will become what's the technical term?
Well, that's for here.
Request a hearing.
Okay. Comfortable with that?
I think we should vote on this.
Yeah, traditional, we don't normally get involved in this stuff, but if you think there's enough concern to get more information, then that's fine.
Yeah.
So to the point that the select board doesn't normally the planning commission would handle this. They had invited the applicant due to technical difficulties. They were not able to have the discussion at the meeting last Wednesday. The deadline to request a hearing has actually passed. It was August 28th. I requested a 1-week extension until tomorrow to give us time to have this discussion tonight. So the planning commission would meet in time to have the discussion again.
So they're meeting tonight,
They're meeting tomorrow night as a regularly scheduled meeting.
and they won't meet the 1 week.
They will not meet, so the planning commission has missed the window to have this discussion.
Right, and I looked at their agenda today, and this is not on their agenda for tomorrow.
So so the only thing that you guys are thinking of here is the traffic flow. Is that what we're concerned about?
That's what Tom was saying, yeah.
We'll just ask about the project. I don't know very much about the project. I mean, if people don't want to do this, that's fine.
Well, he has 5 cabins that he rents, 5. And I guess I'm hard pressed to see how it would change the traffic flow if they were long-term rentals versus short-term rentals. In fact, there'd probably be less traffic flow because people would be moving in for a long period of time.
And also, if they're here, they're gonna know how to drive on a dirt road.
Well, that's something that maybe they might learn if they stay a little longer. You know, I don't know.
I don't have a
Really
super strong
doesn't,
opinion about this.
doesn't
It's
really. And you say that the planning commission is meeting, but they're not going to discuss this?
The opportunity will have passed by the time they meet again.
What is this, how does this affect the owners of Fat Sheep?
It does not. I mean, when you go through Act 250, when they submitted this permit amendment, they knew that this was a potential, having a hearing.
Yeah, traffic could be an issue, right? I think the question is, really, does it conform to the town regional plan? you know, is it a short-term rental business or is it housing?
And that's really not our business. And this is a planning commission or Act 250 permit, right? Process.
It's an Act 250 permit, but we as the town have party status because we're the town and you all are the town. I'm just providing the information. I, you know.
Okay. And I'm more than willing to remove my motion. But
I
if
don't have a
people
strong
want-
feeling either way.
Yeah, so,
It's basically to toss up. 6 of one, half of the other.
I guess what I don't know is there a downstream impact that we're not aware of?
Well, again, in our packets, there's the draft condition to remove that one piece, and it's fairly clear with what they're saying can happen. So I think it's not an Act 250 hearing to redo whether or not the cabins can be used at all. It's really just changing that possibility of.
So if I could boil it down, it's either we request the hearing and we have the opportunity to get more information, or we don't request, or we do nothing. And then we don't know what we don't know, to what Jim just said.
So
And
what you're saying is that if we request a hearing, we'll get more information about what's going on.
we have the opportunity to get more information, yes. By, asking those questions at the hearing.
Okay.
If we don't request a hearing, we don't have that opportunity.
but if people don't have a lot of
Yeah.
questions, and you feel that really nothing's gonna change, let's not waste people's time.
Right, and so I'm assuming that the neighbors were all notified.
Correct.
Were they notified about this meeting
Right, and they
today?
have deferred.
And they have deferred to not show, so they're the ones that are truly affected,
Right.
mostly,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
and they are not here.
No, they went right, the Act 250 folks went right directly to them, and they came back to the Act 250 folks and said
They're not.
are not interested in taking that status, or getting more information. My terms here are a little loose, so I won't be.
Right, yeah, because you're not sure, I understand as well.
Okay, so I think we are, thank you for the information and moving
We spent
on.
a lot of time to decide to do nothing.
Yeah,
That's what government's all about.
Right. Excellent use of resources. Weren't we just talking about being respectful of people's times during the grant discussion?
okay. Okay, moving on to the town manager update.
Yep. So a couple of quick ones. The Vermont Center for Eco Studies is moving forward with planting the garden at the Hartland Public Library in the right adjacent to the existing community garden. There's a Providence garden looking at how the same plants from different parts of the country grow here. There was a little bit of concern that it was the existing leach field for the library, but Daryl Calkins has assured us that it's not, and he's going to come and flag the leach field out prior to them starting their gardening work. So
They're lost, probably grow better.
So it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing that the town needs to do. It's just a little less grass to mow. We did get notification today that as in trying to close out the grant for the Three Corners project that we had gotten with the state of Vermont, that there was an issue with the sidewalk was raised. The sidewalk right out here that is level with the parking areas. So there's no indicator strip on the sidewalk to let folks know that they're moving into the road and off of the sidewalk. So now we have to address that somehow, whether it's taking up a section of the sidewalk, turning it into gravel, or putting in some sort of, indicator pad.
Help me with that again. There's no strip indicating.
That you're leaving the sidewalk and entering the pit. So if you go to the intersection there's those like plates that are raised, that have raised material on them. So if you were,
Washboard.
yeah,
There's no nubs.
right, so if you were, if
It's
you
like
were.
a corrugated area.
Right, so if you're, impaired, the sight impaired in some way, you would be able to feel that as you were walking. This sidewalk does not have that. The state will not allow us to close out the grant until that issue has been resolved.
But it's a matter of putting that strip down.
It's a matter, it's putting it down, or we can take up the sidewalk and put a curb in, basically.
But then that impacts,
It impacts drainage is the real concern.
but doesn't it also impact access?
It could, so it could potentially impact access. So what because this is the access to the lower level to access the lift to get upstairs for Damon Hall. It also impacts drainage, so there was not curbing there. So there's a swale on the side of the building, so water comes off of the road and down out of the intersection and enters that swale. So there's a couple of different issues there. So we don't know the best solution. This just came across our desk today.
All right, so you don't need anything from us.
We don't, it's awareness that we're gonna be, once again, we're gonna be probably tearing up some new sidewalk.
Some brand new concrete.
Right. Yeah.
So
Can you
we
put down the
have,
hubs and to tear it up?
I'm sorry,
To put down the strip.
to put down the strip to tear it up. Whatever solution we come up with, yes.
can we have the firm that's gonna be doing the drainage work fix that for us
It's a,
while they're here?
it's a question we can ask Isaacs. Yeah. We can get it done then. They will be here sometime end October, early November. Whether the state will give us an extension to give us that much time to do it.
Okay.
So 2 highway related issues, we're gonna move forward with putting on an automatic garage door opener. Right now, only one of the garage doors has an automatic opener. So they're gonna go forward. They got a quote to put one on the other door. It's relatively straightforward work. And then we're gonna be going out to bid soon for, to replace one of the 10-wheelers. So I think it's a 2019. So we'll put that out to bid and start moving forward with getting new bids for a new truck. Obviously, we won't have it by winter, but we will, have it by as soon as we can. And then there was a request to talk about ARPA. So I have an ARPA update for everybody. So the town got just over $1 million in ARPA funding. And since that time, we spent it on 5 different projects totaling $260,000 and some change.
Can you just rattle off the stuff?
Yep. So we spent about $29,000 on JASW, the folks who did the architectural renderings for Damon Hall and the rec center, identifying the drainage issues that need to be done. We spent $24,000 on the Queechee Road study, just under $10,000 on the 17-acre wood match that we committed to the school. About $8,000 on the North Hartland covered bridge, the newer bridge that we did the assessment of. And then $190,000 is yet to be spent on Isaac's excavating, doing the work, the drainage work at both facilities.
Okay.
There is more money out of that account right now, out of that balance. We spent about $250,000 on the Jennyville Road project. That was our work, but we will get reimbursed for that once it gets processed by the state.
Okay, and a couple of years ago, the select board made a motion to spend ARPA money on a salary increase for town staff.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So how that washed out in the accounting, your guess is gonna be?
What is the balance, John?
$788,007.
We have a time limit on, well, we don't have a time limit.
No
now
time limit.
Because we did
The
ship.
money was reallocated to not have a time limit on it.
Do we have these funds like a high interest account or anything? Or we just know straight?
We do, Tom. But generally, those are 3 months to about 5 months.
So it's a CD, you're saying?
Yeah,
We have $1.5 million sitting in the CD. It's gonna cut about $4,800 a month.
Any questions on ARPA?
thank you for doing that.
No, I think though, it's, yeah, I need that audit report and try to understand what our total surplus is.
Yes. That's it. It's relatively quiet. Like Tom mentioned earlier, it kind of seems like we meet all the time now, so not that much has changed.
Future agenda items will include continual follow-up on the cemetery, capital program plan,
Audit report.
an inventory of the town-owned properties, and continue to see if we can move forward on the status of the North Hartland School.
Yeah, still trying to get contractors to reply to give us quotes.
Yeah.
And 3 corners. Punch line,
So, yeah,
budget punch line.
so there's still one remaining invoice that we haven't received yet.
And we have the lighting.
But So, yeah, 2 remaining invoices remain outstanding for the 3 corners. The invoice for Comcast for their utilities work, and then we'll get 1 more invoice from GPI, but we expect that one to be relatively small.
Right, but any money, any expenses in excess of the bond and the grant money combined, we need to approve the transfer of funds from the highway fund or from somewhere else to cover those expenses.
And where are my favorite stuff, the lighting? What are we doing now?
It remains, I think the first step would be to hold a public hearing or a public meeting to talk about lighting and get input on how we want to proceed in terms of style and things along those lines. So getting that scheduled is step number 1.
We have some examples, but
Right.
I think we want to make sure that
So we're not gonna have any lights till next spring. It's frustrating, this is taking so long.
I
It's
agree.
really frustrating.
I Totally,
It should not take this long.
and it's dangerous as well.
Right. I don't get it.
How many lights came down?
I'm sorry.
How many lights came down?
Came down, I don't know that number.
It's like 2 or 3 lights that are not there anymore.
So the light remains on the corner, I believe on the pole at the corner of the library drive. And 5, there are no lights currently in the,
Right, but
In the intersection.
In the intersection, there was only the light on the pole over by the wall. And
Damon Hall.
the Damon Hall one's still there. Right, and there was one by BG's.
One of the station roads not put anymore either.
But that's outside the project, right? Was it taken down?
No, everything's still there, but
It just doesn't work.
I was up at 2 AM and sitting on my front porch Saturday morning, and it was totally dark, and it was not one light on anything.
Yeah, I think there's no question that we need the lights. There's no question that we need the lighting. And from a safety perspective. And I'm also disappointed that we're talking about this on September
And we're gonna
3rd.
have a community-wide thing to come up with a charrette, I mean, okay, let's see how long we can drag this out.
But I mean,
This is a safety issue.
well, right,
Do you see how many people were walking when you're driving in here? A lot of people walking their dogs these days and everything.
Right.
We have the dog park over there now, a lot more people over there. This is
but
unacceptable.
your approach is a lift, where it's just the stop area that's.
Jim, I don't care. I don't care. We need the lights.
I think we need a scope.
We spend a lot of money there for aesthetics, and we're ignoring safety.
And we've had the engineering studies done now, and
Right.
state approvals, so it's really just a matter of.
So is there a scope that you can share with this group so we can understand it? Like why? it's
We've
not-
all looked at it, Jim.
I looked at a picture of a light. I've not seen the
Well,
project.
I'm sorry. The actual post and the luminaire on top yes, there are different choices, and I think that's what John was referring to. I've asked everyone when they're in downtown White River Junction to look at the various samples, because there's 2 or 3 there.
But do we have a project scope that shows where the lights are going?
Yes, we have that.
Can we share?
And we
that?
have the wires underground ready to be.
Can we share that with the board?
Yeah. So we
But
had,
it's fixed, Jim. What are we sharing? The wires are there. We're not gonna move it. I think what we need to decide on is the type of post we're gonna use and the light head. That's what we have to do.
I think we need, I personally, to vote for something, I need to understand the scope of the cost, all right? So that's what I'm
Until
asking for. Is there a reason why you wouldn't share that?
Until we decide, because, so I've done like 2 or 3 of these projects.
So,
Until we decide what we want, you can get a fiberglass type post, you can get a steel, I mean, you can get aluminum, you can get, so the cost can really
right.
vary.
again, we've had the scope, we've had the engineering, and we have a range based on those factors. And we also talked to Green Mountain Power about rental versus buying.
Okay,
So
how do I get
I think
a copy
what John,
of that?
what,
Do I need to submit a public records request, or you guys want to send it?
I can send
that's
you,
really,
I can send you what we have.
Thank you.
yeah, it's kind of a low blow, Jim, because you sat there looking at the stuff.
Never seen a scope on this project.
Okay. Thank you, John, for indicating that. Yeah, we actually had planned to use another resource, but that resource is now committed to another position they took, so temporary position. So, okay. Anything else, John?
No, that's it for me.
Okay. Any correspondence?
There is a correspondence. You all got a copy. It's the 2024 reappraisal order. So from the state of Vermont saying that the town has received an order in June as an order to reappraise. And then, so we need to acknowledge that we have received it and also, move forward with a reappraisal. I know that's outside of the select board's ability to do anything about, but I think a request to the board of listers to get the RFP finalized and out so we can get on a reappraisal schedule would be warranted in response to the letter.
We asked a number of months ago of the listers to do that, did we not?
That is correct.
What is the time frame that we're discussing?
So this is the first, we received this letter on August 30th. This is dated. This is our records indicate that the town of Hartland received an order to reappraise on June 8th, 2024. I have no records of that. We were supposed to respond within 30 days of that June 8th timeline. So now I think responding to this, to the state to say, yeah, we have received this and here is the path we are taking forward. Should happen, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But we did get this letter last year, roughly the same time. Did we respond to it last year? What do we know?
I do not know if we responded to it, if we received it last year.
And who was that directed to?
This is direct, it just says town of Hartland.
Sean said we requested the listers to get that RFP out. And we also asked them to come together, come to a meeting so that we could talk about common level of appraisals and with the district advisor. Okay. If there is no other correspondence or nothing, no hands raised, we do have an executive session tonight. There's 2 separate items to be warned and talked about. I need a motion to move into executive session.
Which one are we doing first, Merrit, Campbell?
Sure.
Do you have documentation? for the
Yes.
meeting? Okay.
That's so long. That's so long.
I am, it's gonna take long.
No, tape. Oh, sorry, pass it along. Sorry, pass that along. That was confusing. What word it
I don't
does.
know what pass along means.
Just move that down the line.
Oh, okay.
Move that down the line.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Now I can.
So take it.
Sorry, that was confusing. I see how that was poorly worded. I'll be right back.
That's fine.
Don't leave it. I have to pee. You gotta wait.
You go.
You guys talked all night. I have to come back.
So these documents.
Those are the documents that will be for the Merrit Campbell request.
All right, then I want to make a motion that the documents that we have contain the person's personal financial information, and therefore they're exempt from public inspection pursuant to 1 V.S.A. 317C7.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye.
all right, don't get up yet. Based on that these documents are not, part of, based on the fact these documents are exempt from public inspection, I make a motion that we move to executive session to discuss a Merrit Campbell request pursuant to 1 V.S.A. 313A6.
And for benefit of Jan, are we going to be making a decision after our executive?
Possible. Okay, so we need a second on the second motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right.
And then you're unmuted.
So Tom, you get the first motion?
I make a motion that we provide up to a maximum of $800 to assist a resident.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we enter executive session under 1 V.S.A. 313 to discuss personnel performance issues.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And
Muted. Off. We're back on camera and unmuted.
Then I would like to make a motion to adjourn. There was no action taken in after our last session.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Next time, I'm making the motion.